Welcome to the Vitamin Professor podcast, brought to you by VRM Media, publisher of Vitamin Retailer and Nutrition Industry Executive magazines, in partnership with Nutraland USA. I'm your host, Dr. Gene Bruno, Professor Emeritus of Nutraceutical Science and Chief Scientific Officer of Nutraland USA. The purpose of this podcast is to help educate the dietary supplement industry about the science of nutraceuticals and other relevant topics. If you like what you hear and see, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, Connie Wong, our guest today, is a scientific and technical manager at IFF Health Sciences, bringing 20 years of experience in the probiotic industry, spanning research, innovation, and product development. Throughout her career, she has played a critical role in translating microbiome science into commercially viable solutions with a strong focus on developing products that perform consistently in real-world conditions. Connie is known for her innovative approach and technical stewardship mindset, guiding projects across the full development life cycle from strain selection through formulation and shelf life performance. Her work is grounded in ensuring scientific rigor while addressing the practical challenges brands face in bringing probiotic products to market. With deep expertise in bridging science and application, Connie provides clear, actionable guidance to help reduce developmental risk, improve product reliability, and ultimately drive successful commercialization. Today, Connie is going to talk to us about how to build probiotic solutions that perform consistently in the real world. Welcome, Connie.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, Connie, I have been in the industry a long time myself, about 47 years, and I have developed and formulated probiotic supplements over the years, and man, a lot of stuff has changed during that time. So I want my first question for you to be this. So the microbiome space has grown pretty rapidly in recent years. What do you see as the biggest gap between scientific discovery and successful products in the market?
Yes. So before I answer your question, because yes, we should probably start by, defining what the microbiome is.
Good idea.
Right.
Let's start there.
Yeah, just so we can level set. So it is an ecosystem of trillions of organisms in and on our bodies, with the largest amount residing in our gut. So oftentimes when people say the microbiome, they sort of automatically assume the gut microbiome, but actually we have a skin microbiome and eye microbiome, right? So, and then one fun fact is that if you gathered up all those microbes in your gut, you could actually hold them in the palm of your hand. So they amass to something that is actually something you can see with your eye, which is pretty cool, I think.
That is.
Yeah. And so, we have been learning so much and so many new things about the microbiome. And this often leads to new probiotics. And so as we're starting here, we should also define what probiotics are. So they are live microorganisms that in adequate amounts provide benefit to the host. And so this is, something in my field that you can recite in your sleep. So, but just so that we're all familiar. And so the microbiome space has been growing rapidly. And maybe the biggest gap, though, is assuming that that strong clinical science alone translates to product success.
Yes, very, very good. That makes a great deal of sense, because you can have good clinical research, but there's a whole lot of steps that goes into that process of making a successful market in the product. So that assumption is not one that's good to have. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and so in order for the consumer to get that study benefit, the brands have to deliver the clinically studied dose in that product throughout shelf life.
Okay, so then would you say that or other aspects is where most probiotic products fall short when moving from concept to commercialization?
Oh gosh. Yes. I mean, I think it's many different aspects all together. So, and this is, something I think that we'll talk about as we get further in here. But there are many aspects to making a successful probiotic product, and you have to consider all of those things together.
Okay, so then let's go to the next question of what are some of the most common mistakes brands make in early development of probiotic products?
So a common mistake is making key decisions in silos. So, for example, selecting a strain purely on published data without considering the formulation constraints or the intended delivery format.
Yeah, what's interesting over the years is I have had customers, meaning brands, that have come to me to formulate products. And they'll have a laundry list of different nutraceuticals in there, and they want to have a probiotic in there together with a bunch of other nutraceuticals. It's like there's often an understanding that probiotics don't always play well with other nutraceuticals, especially depending upon the moisture content of those nutraceuticals, and people don't understand. So when you see this big laundry list of nutraceuticals and suddenly there's a probiotic or two thrown in, it matters a great deal if that strain is up to it. And many times it's not. And so by the time a consumer uses it, it's just not going to be active anymore. So your point is a very, very good one. You've got to consider the delivery form. Is it a powder? Is it a capsule? What is it? So I'm right there with you on that one for sure.
And there can be that disconnect between, what the brands have dreamt up and what, they bring to us to formulate, and then what's possible in reality. And so, we're really trying to ensure that we make those good decisions on the front end, rather than, mixing everything together and then just, hoping that it turns out okay.
Yeah. That doesn't work out so well.
Yeah.
So look, there's really a strong emphasis on strains and science, which is good. But how important are formulation and stability in determining real-world efficacy?
Oh my gosh. So formulation and stability are absolutely critical. And these are the things that really, excite me about working in this industry. But, while the strain is the foundation, how it's formulated really determines whether or not it can consistently deliver its benefits over time.
Absolutely. Agree completely. Now, this brings me to the next question, which I also have a comment on, but I'm going to ask the question first. What does it actually take to ensure a microbiome product performs consistently throughout shelf life?
Oh gosh. Okay, so get ready, right?
Yep.
So it really comes down to designing for stability from the beginning. And at IFF, we actually have many different teams of scientists that all have different expertise that are all working together to make this happen. So it's kind of like when you go to the supermarket and you look at your packaged meat, in the cooler, and you don't know all the things that came, behind and into that piece of meat. It's like a probiotic supplement. So you see it on the shelf, the consumer is largely unaware of all the work that it took to prepare that product and get it to the shelf. So it does start with finding the strain and then developing the clinical science behind it. So efficacy testing and strain characterization should happen in parallel in development. And at IFF, we have our Verify protocol, which includes a number of different steps to ensure that we have all the regulatory and quality aspects of the strain that we're producing all buttoned up for the brands. So we're looking at strain identification, we're testing for toxicity, we're looking even at genetic safety screening. Then we get into the lab, we're looking at acid and biotolerance, we're looking at stability of that freeze-dried probiotic. And so, all of that needs to happen before we can make a successful product. So, designing that stability for us starts by growing the strain. And we grow our strains in giant fermenters. So they're thousands of liters big. And our biggest one, which is 120 liters, is actually the height of a 2-story house. So, there's stairs that lead all the way up, so our operators are really getting their steps in as they're working this fermenter. And so probiotics are very unique. Each strain is unique, sort of like people, and they all have different needs in order to grow. So what they like to eat, what temperature they like to be at to make them warm and fuzzy so that they reproduce. And so our scientists are really making sure that they understand that.
Very good. In regard to stability, I wanted to make a comment and correct me if your experience is different, but one of the things I've seen over the years, like I've worked for contract manufacturers as well, is if you look at a standard nutraceutical, you can assess stability in two ways. You can do real-time stability or ambient stability, in which it sits around for a couple of years, and you do testing on it, and it sits in a retain room and so forth. And then there is accelerated stability, in which a certain temperature and a certain relative humidity is utilized. But you can't really do that with probiotics, because if you put it at that relative humidity, you immediately activate that in that temperature. You activate that probiotic from its suspended animation state, and then it just basically it dies, and you it's not around. So you really can't do accelerated stability in that, and so you really need to be able to do a real world stability. Is that, or real time? Is that correct from your perspective?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the difference really is that probiotics are live microorganisms. And so
Yes.
they just don't respond well to accelerated testing. And we've tried multiple different times. And really, we're trying to get it to then that accelerated result to correlate to a real-time time point. And it just isn't possible with probiotics. So it does mean that you're running real-time testing.
Yeah.
And so what we can do, though, is, we can get a few months in, and then based on our experience and what we've seen before,
Yeah.
we can make some predictions about what the say 18 to 24 month shelf life is going to look like.
Right. And also, I just want to, again, feel free to correct me if your experience is different here, but I just want to bring out to the people who are listening to this, especially brand owners, that what's typical in industry for most nutraceutical products is 24 months. You put a 24-month date stamp on your product, but when you're talking about a live microorganism, that may not always be 24 months. It might be 18 months, but it just depends. But what is your experience in that, Connie?
Yes, it can depend on the format, especially. So I would say in capsules, it's pretty, routine to get a 24-month shelf life.
Very
But
good.
it's really the additional moisture that you're introducing by the rest of your formulation, or your capsule shell. And so these are some of the other aspects that you have to consider when you're formulating with probiotics.
So would capsules, in your experience, are going to generally provide a greater stability than, say, a powder that's just in tub or something, would you say?
Okay, so it depends on what else is in that powder, right?
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. Let's just say, for the purposes of this discussion, we don't have any other nutraceuticals present. Maybe a prebiotic or something, but nothing else. What would you say then? Would you say that the powder is going to be less stable than the capsule, or would you say that not necessarily?
Not necessarily, if we're talking
Okay.
about equal powders, actually. So as long as you're able to maintain the water activity at a low state. So we're usually looking at below 0.2. And that is what helps maintain the viability best of a freeze-dried probiotic. It's when you start to introduce, protein powders and botanicals and all of these things with a higher water activity, that's what ends up being slightly detrimental. Then there are other things that can be done. We have other tips and tricks and tools that we can pull in order to make it all happen. And so we definitely work with our different brands to try to make that happen.
Very good. Okay, so now at IFF you talk about from strain to shelf approach, but what does that actually look like in practice?
So for us, the from strain to shelf approach means that we're taking an integrated approach across the entire developmental process. And so instead of treating the science, the formulation, and the commercialization as different steps, we're connecting them all from the start. So so our scientists are looking at the development of that strain. Then we have the formulation team that is looking at making that final product and then guiding it into commercialization to make a successful product.
Very good. So now, especially when you have a customer who is maybe newer to the world of probiotics, especially then, but at any time, how do you help those customers reduce risk when developing, microbiome products?
Yes, so we can help reduce risk by bringing that end-to-end perspective. So, that strain to shelf viewpoint. So we're considering the stability, formulation, and application requirements up front so that we can help customers avoid costly reformulation later. So in adequately formulating products, we're trying to deliver the clinically studied dose of the strain, and so we can bring that benefit to consumers. And our teams sleep well at night knowing that we've delivered gold star quality to those probiotics.
Very good. Now, something just popped up in my head, as often it does. When, I mentioned I've been in the industry a long time, and I remember when probiotics were, let's say, newer on the market, and all you really had in the beginning was like Lactobacillus acidophilus. And then you started having other strains that came out, other species and strains. But in the beginning, and for many, many years, the only real sort of benefits associated with probiotics were it's good for your gut.
Right.
It's good for your gut. It's sort of a digestive aid, in some way, shape, or form. And then eventually, it was like, hey, it's also good for your immune system. Well, that was nice. But now, my goodness, there are probiotic strains that cover so many kinds of different potential benefits. I was just wondering if you might just mention some of the potential benefits, obviously strain dependent, that exist out there for probiotics.
Yes, I think this is part of our growing knowledge of the microbiome, and that your gut is connected to the rest of your body. So, I've heard some people say it's not just a tube, that runs through you.
That's right.
And so actually, and you were mentioning, the immune benefits from probiotics, and it's because 70% of your immune cells are in your gut. So that's how, right, probiotics are able to have their influence. But your gut does connect to your brain. So, you hear about the gut-brain axis. So, probiotics have a potential to impact there. There's the gut-skin axis, and yes. and where there's also, you can take probiotics orally to have women's health benefits, like and then that they are able to influence the vaginal microbiome also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes.
I just was at a women's health conference in New Jersey called Outlook on Women's Health Wellness,
Uh-huh.
and that was one of the very topics that was discussed. The for vaginal health and so forth. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It is amazing that probiotics really can have that impact on, the entire body.
It is, and you're mentioning about the gut brain axis. One of the terms that I see in use now is psychobiotics. Just talking about sort of that relationship. It's just a kind of a fancy term to describe that relationship. But to me, it's just so exciting to see all of the different applications. I've seen so many different applications that have developed over the years, and are continuing to develop. So I think that's pretty exciting. But anyway, thank you for that. Okay, so now, what's one consideration that brands should be addressing earlier in development that often gets overlooked?
Yes, I would say packaging.
Ah,
Yes. So, we can formulate, the most sound probiotic capsule or
yes.
powder or what have you. But if you don't choose the correct packaging, you could sabotage your whole product.
Oh,
And we unfortunately have seen this happen. And so, packaging is a key opportunity to protect and maintain that probiotic viability. And, oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just interested in, are there some sort of practical tips on packaging, like what kind of considerations are there? Like when you say packaging, you're talking about the bottle or the canister that it's in, and does it have to do with what it's made from? Does it have to do with the color? What does it have to do with?
Yes, it for sure has to do with what that packaging is made of. So, not all plastics are created equal. So, PET in particular is really bad. I mean, you can get some beautiful PET bottles, but they're doing nothing to protect your probiotic. So, really, you're thinking about the moisture vapor transmission rate of your packaging. And
That makes sense.
right, yeah. And so then to help out that packaging too, adding a desiccant can really help things along.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just any desiccant. So we're really recommending a molecular sieve desiccant. And, they come in the same little packs as the silica gel, which is more typically used in the
Yes.
nutraceutical industry, right?
Exactly.
Right, but on the low end of water activity and moisture, the molecular sieve actually works better to absorb moisture and keep that moisture low within the container.
Very good. Yeah. That's incredibly important, and I would argue probably packaging for probiotics is probably more important than just about any other nutraceutical out there, because that's the one that's alive. Um,
Yes.
and you really have to give special consideration to in maintaining its shelf life there. And what a disappointment it is if somebody you create this great product, this great capsule, this great material, and did all the research and everything and stability, and somebody just uses um, the wrong packaging. And one of the things that I think is really important is, and I just want to say this to the people out there in brands, don't leave packaging strictly up to the marketing department. Nothing against marketing, but they don't necessarily have the scientific expertise to understand that you need the right kind of package to protect it, because you don't want to go through all that process just to end up with a product that's ineffective because it doesn't maintain its stability. So yeah, really, really important direction on that, Connie. So thank you.
Yes. Oh, one other thing I would add is
Please.
that, especially in a bottle situation, all of the components of that bottle make a difference and an impact on the probiotic stability. So we have seen where, even though it's a heat sealed, barrier on the top of the bottle, some of them are vented. And so in that case, you're still not protecting your probiotic product inside as best you can. So you really need to consider every packaging component.
Right. And would it be accurate to say that some probiotics can even be sensitive to UV light and some other areas, and so it's important to make sure that you have the right bottle components to protect against that, or is that not as big a deal?
I don't think that is as big a deal. So we did some, in lab testing, actually with, a light system in different bottle types, putting probiotics into different bottle types. And we didn't actually see a difference in the probiotic
interesting.
count. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. So when it comes to packaging, considerations for moisture is the name of the game. That's what you really want to focus on. Kind of.
That is the key thing, yes.
Okay, all right. So if you had to give one piece of advice to a company that is developing a microbiome product today, what would that be?
So as we've been talking, I think starting with the end in mind is really important. So think about your final product and your final format, your shelf life expectations, and your consumer use case from the beginning. So who are you targeting? And so these can't be afterthoughts. So, and then in order to put those all together and make a successful product, you really need to work with a partner who's well-versed at probiotic formulations.
Agreed. So another question popped into my mind. So I was just thinking about it. You see on the market a lot. You go to the shelf in a store that sells probiotics and other supplements. Sometimes you will see single strain products, and sometimes you'll see multiple strain products. And sometimes the multiple strain products, it's not unusual to see, like the first one has a pretty significant CFU count in the billions, and then all the others are somewhere in the millions. And it makes me think sometimes of, and I don't know if this is correct, but it makes me think of products out there where you have other nutraceuticals, and they'll have a proprietary blend, and they list the first listed ingredient may be present at a clinically relevant dose, and then all of the others are just like put in there as fairy dust, just to kind of look good. And so my question is to you, when you're looking at a product and you see a product that has a single strain, is that preferable over multi-strains, or is multi-strains fine just depending upon the formulation, I guess?
Yeah, I think they all have their place. So oftentimes when it's a single strain product, it's usually because that single strain has been studied to have, some very specific benefits. And you're trying to, or brands are trying to, play up and feature that one strain. And so in that case, then you're usually a consumer's buying that product to address the specific need. When you're looking at blends, blends can be nice because then, it covers, it gives your gut a variety of different microbes to help it out, right? So that can be nice. And the diversity is good. And oftentimes when we're formulating, we are choosing certain strains to then, be the most stable in that formulation. And so not only deliver the clinical dose, but also to maintain the label claim of the product throughout shelf life.
Right. And how if you have a multi-strain formulation, how important do you think it is that each strain is present at a clinically relevant dose versus just the first one listed?
If the product is claiming those benefits, then it needs to have the clinically studied dose.
Right.
So it's important for those strains. For the other strains that are in the product for, brand differentiation, it's less important. I would say then there's two things that are important there. So delivering the clinically studied dose of those specific strains, and then delivering the label claim of the overall product.
Right. And something else that's changed over the years is in the beginning, it was, you could just sort of list CFU count. And now for labeling requirements now, you're supposed to include the actual milligram amount. I personally think it's a good idea to include both.
Agreed.
I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Yes. So while the milligram amounts can be maybe more familiar to the consumer, really it's the cell count or the CFU, the colony forming unit, that we in the probiotic industry really use as the metric. And then to know and make that determination that the product is delivering the proper amount of cells.
Very good. All right. Another question that popped into my mind. Today, in addition to the whole biotic family has expanded from what it once was. It was only probiotics, and now you're seeing, of course, prebiotics, and you're seeing postbiotics.
Yes.
So I just was wondering if you might give just a sort of a quick explanation of what those two biotics are and your thoughts about them.
Yes. So prebiotics are generally, but not always, fibers, but there's some sort of food that benefits the good microbes in your gut. And so oftentimes, when you see a, prebiotic fiber in a tub, or, that kind of thing, so that's really food for your good bacteria in your gut. Then you have the postbiotics, and so these are the newest members of the biotics family, and they are usually inactivated probiotics, usually. It can also be their metabolites or the components of those cells as well. Yeah. But we do know that the outside of the probiotic cell can have a health benefit, and so that's really how the postbiotics are having their action.
Very good. Okay, well, I appreciate that. And your thoughts about combining some of those things together, those different biotics together in a formula?
They definitely make a catchy formula. It's really great to put them together. And, it's important to make sure that your prebiotic can actually feed the probiotic in the formula. And so, also working with, a probiotic supplier that has that knowledge and can help brands out with that is really important.
That's right. Somebody that can give some direction on just because you say, oh, I'm going to put FOS in there. That's good for everything. Well, maybe not.
Right.
Maybe it's not good for everything, and so forth. And of course, like you say, in addition to the prebiotic fibers, you even have now some polyphenols that have prebiotics. So that would be fantastic that a group such as IFF can actually help give direction on that to make a better formula. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, where do you see the biggest opportunity for innovation in probiotics over the next few years?
So I think one of the biggest opportunities is to advance how we deliver these microbiome solutions, so into formats that are both effective and convenient for consumers, and something that they're going to want to go back to, day after day. So that for companies like IFF, it means improving the probiotic stability, particularly for lactic acid bacteria. So those are your, traditional
Sure.
probiotics that we usually see on the market, so that we can enable them to go into more formulations, like gummies. So this is sort of like at the moment the holy grail, into more high water activity drink mixes, into granola bars, these or intermediate moisture
Yeah.
foods and things like that.
Yeah, because now pretty much whenever you see a gummy out there, it's got something. It's got like a spore forming uh, probiotic, something in the Bacillus genus, which stands up,
Right.
reasonably well to that kind of situation. But if you want to get something like, lactobacilli or bifidobacteria or something like that, you gotta have something a little more hardy, I guess. And so you're working on that. That's great because
Yes.
because listen, I think the spore forming bacteria are fantastic options, but it's nice to have more options. And so if you are able to do stuff now, what are your thoughts on things like, I don't know, like micro encapsulated versions of probiotics? I've seen that out there sometimes. Does that really help much in these kind of situations?
So our probiotics that we make today, our freeze dried offering, is actually microencapsulated. So we have,
Oh,
yeah,
very
we
nice. I didn't know that.
yes, we use a matrix or matricial microencapsulation technology. And then above and beyond that, then you have what we've termed as a core shell microencapsulation. So this would be additional layers. And I have been, researching and working with technology providers of microencapsulation for many years now, and it's tough. So again, what makes probiotics so wonderful and their action possible is that they're live. And so then when you're introducing more processing steps, more moisture through a core shell microencapsulation technology, that often ends up being detrimental. So we continue to search and do the best we can to see what we can come up with for protecting our probiotics.
And as it stands currently, you have a kind of microencapsulated version, which is certainly going to provide a greater degree of protection than just a standard probiotic that doesn't have such uh, microencapsulation. So that, to me, that's a huge plus for any formulator out there who is looking for a reliable, uh, you know, probiotic strain to use in the formula. So I learned something else new today, that you guys do that. So that's fantastic. I'm very excited to hear that.
Yes.
Uh,
And
yeah.
so also, fun fact about probiotics is that, like I mentioned earlier, they don't all like the same kind of things. So even the matricial microencapsulation, it's not one size that fits all. You have to tailor it to each specific probiotic. So our process R&D team works really hard at that to optimize the microencapsulation solution for each strain.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, then I just want to, Connie, I just want to thank you for being a guest today on the Vitamin Professor podcast. It's been enlightening. It's been very, very interesting. I've learned some new things. I have no doubt that our listeners have also learned some new things about the whole process of formulating probiotics from strain to shelf. And we'll have an opportunity to possibly contact IFF and understand better how you folks can help them in their development process of probiotics. So thank you. And I want to just mention to our audience, if you like what you heard and saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.